it's Desiree, and we are here with our final video, video 5 of our 4th series. And again, we're building scenes, whether that's through die cutting, stamping, masking, layering, adding the two, adding different components together, not just doing one thing. So it's all kinds of different ways to do that. Now, normally these are not part of production type style cards, unless you start in January, because they're more involved. There's, there's coloring, there's ink blending, lots of die cutting, and all of the steps that it takes to get to put the card together in some way. Today it's all going to be all about die cutting, but mainly focusing on we don't need a lot of cardstock colors to create sometimes our cards. So I'm going to be using this die set. It's by Paper Tray Ink, and it's going to build a village, like a snowy winter village type scene. I am going to use one color of card, or two colors of cardstock. One color for the background and another color for everything else. The snow hills, the trees, the houses, all of that. I am going to pull in some vellum for the back of the houses, and I am going to pull in one ink. So those are the supplies that I'm using. While this is a village, and yes, you could look and say, okay, every house has to be a different color. You don't have to do that. All right? We can use just one color of cardstock. So if you're limited in that, this is a perfect way, again, to use this die, stretch it out, and just have fun with it. Now, we're going to do the same thing as we've done before. I'm going to switch over to voiceover. And we're going to walk through the card, how I put it together, and then I'm going to come back on and explain a couple things. This die set is or any die set that's like this, again, dig into your stash. See what you have, whether it's small houses, small trees, small critters. A silhouette type die is something that you want to look for, okay? Or even if you have a coordinating die set that creates a silhouette shape, would be perfect for something like this. So dig into your stash. This is going to be a long video like the other ones, a little bit longer than normal, or maybe not, and a little bit of gab. All right, so grab your supplies and let's get started. We're going to start. The die cutting is already done. Yes, there's a lot of die cutting. And we're going to start with our back panel here. And I'm just using one ink color. And I'm starting out with a colored cardstock. Sometimes that can help to get you a variegated look. Instead of starting out with white, and then having to add like 2, 3, sometimes 4 different colors. Don't get me wrong, that's usually what I do, and I love the look. But if you start out with a colored cardstock with what you're dealing with, so in this case, a night sky, you could start out with a light blue, like I did here, and just add one color of ink, and just add more ink out to the edges. Now, this looks like a hot mess, but it actually fades itself out, okay? So here are all of our die cuts. And I did die cut, sorry, I turned away from the mic there to grab the card. And I did die cut every one of the houses twice. I want them to have just a little bit of stability. And that is because of all of the layers that I'm going to be adding to this. This card at the base ends up being about a 1/2 inch thick. Because of the way that I created the front. it's like a stepping stone. And you'll see what I mean as we put this card together. So just doubling these up, and then I'm going to set these onto a piece of vellum, just so there's something in the back of all of those windows, and it's not completely what you're seeing shining right through. So I just have a strip of vellum here, and I'm just going to glue these down, and I'm just going to take my small scissors and cut around it. So I'm going to angle it, angle the scissors, and just snip right up underneath it. Now every time I go off, it's because I don't want it to fall right in front of me. And that's all that I do here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we also don't have to piece all of this. So by just gluing in the center of your houses, it's a quick and easy way to get the vellum down. And you saw like that one, I just made a T so that I'm able to bend the paper back, get those scissors up underneath, and then just cut where I need to cut. Just got to know where your windows are, because some of them are close to the edge when it comes to the way that this was designed. Remember, your glue dries clear, so don't stress if you have glue that's coming out. It'll go away. Now, after you get your vellum on here, you could also, grab a marker, like a yellow marker, and add that to the back, and then you'd have this shade of yellow coming through to make it look like lights were on inside. You can certainly do that too. That would be pretty. So now we're just going to get the final ones on here. And now our houses are ready. So just pulling in all of the pieces. Again, cut a lot of trees, cut a lot of the strings for the snowflakes, the birch trees. I love the birch trees. I'm just saying. They are absolutely precious. This die set comes with the snowbanks. I'm going to set the first one down, and then the second one I'm going to prop up using double-sided foam tape. Now, this is a very thick double-sided foam tape. I am trying to use it up so that it never returns. It's a good strong tape, but it is sticky, it gums, and getting the release paper off is horrific. So, nope, won't even tell you where I got this one. Great price. Now I know why. But it's just gummy, but it's also really thick. It's even thicker than the 3M, but that's okay. And I place that same one down. I'm going to do the same thing with the next two layers. So now that I have that one down, I'm now going to set the next one. What's happening is I'm creating this gap in between the two snowdrifts. Yes, I have another roll that I need to use. I'm also making sure to keep this double-sided foam tape away from the top. I don't want it to go to the very top. I want to be able to inset the houses. And then I'm going to line this up. We're going to do the same thing on this one. Now, for this layer, I'm using just normal the low-rise double-sided foam squares. So this one isn't going to be as far out. And then we're going to place that down. And then the last one, we're going to set the first layer down, and then we won't set the next layer down until we want to. So you can see you've got like this stepping stone now coming up on the front of your card. So now we're going to play with the placement of all of these characters, all the houses, the buildings, and the fists were because I forgot to add a little bit of blue to the top of the snow. So this has like a the blues that I used have like a grayish tone to them. It's like a periwinkle. I think that's what it's called. And I really love it. I absolutely love the color. And I want that to go through down into the snow as well. So not adding too much. It looks like it's a lot, but it does dry back. But it'll continue down onto the front of the card. And again, these all blend back beautifully. Those spots you hardly even see anymore. Okay. Back to the building. Just having some fun placing where we want the houses, how we want them to go, adding in the trees, the birch trees, the evergreens, or pine trees, whatever you want to call them there, and just having fun with that. Now, because I have the gap in between the main drifts, these houses are able to sit back into that. I don't have to... I wanted them to be raised up a little bit. I don't know if I'm making sense with what I was doing. A lot of times we just put the drift down and then we put the next one, we prop that up with double-sided foam, and then we put that in there as well. If I did that to the back, they would have sat onto the blue background. I wanted them to be raised up just a little bit. So that layer of cardstock is doing that. I'm also remembering to only put glue down onto the bottom so that the top is not adhered to the snowdrift, the snowbank that's behind it. Again, looking for all of that dimension. What was in my crazy little old head were those stepping cards where they expanded out. They were like accordion cards. I don't know if anyone remembers those. That's what was kind of in my brain for this, but without making the accordion, so that when the card sits up, it gives that accordion look because the houses aren't affixed to the back. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. It's tough to explain. Now I'm just poking in the trees. If I have to snip them down, I snip them down. But I do love these birch trees. These birch trees are awesome. So many uses for those. And then I will set one fence in there as well. And then we'll set some evergreens. Now, with the evergreens, there's a score line in the center of them. So there's one that I put in between the church back there, and I raised that up just a little bit. So it looks like it's dimension. Now, what's really cool with these, you could keep adding them to each other. Just glue one side of each tree together, and you would get this beautiful 3D effect coming off of the tree. I just didn't have a spot where I wanted that to sit because I wanted everything behind a snowbank. So yeah, but you could do it because I tried to do it along the edge, thinking I could get that effect. This card did not take long to put together. Absolutely not. What takes time is all the die cutting. Die cutting it does take time when it comes to the cards. But boy, it just gives you absolutely wonderful and beautiful results. You can see as I'm putting the birch trees on, because I'm hitting that level in the front, I'm going right down to the bottom of the card base because there is another hillside that's going to come in. That's going to cover that up, and I'm placing that down now. So everything now is sandwiched into a hillside. So here you can see I'm playing with that 3D effect. So again, able to pull up that area and just set her in there. Give it a little bit of dimension. For those that are completely behind a house, just letting those be flat. And you can see they bend easy right along that. You can see I'm putting those together going, yes. And it looks really cool to do that. But I just couldn't. Here's where I'm looking, saying, okay, where can this sit? It was too much 3D. It didn't have anything to base, to ground itself to. So I figured, okay, I could have that sitting off to the side. I do end up cutting that off. Same thing to the one that I'm about to do to the other side. I end up cutting that off as well. And it's just cutting along the score line. So I just have half a tray sitting there. We're going to add some of the stars in the background. And now we're going to add some of the snowflakes. Just making sure they're at different heights. And because they were off to the right, I just felt I needed one to the left as well when it comes to the snowflakes. But then that meant I had 4 snowflakes. And for those of you that have been here for a while, you know I like odd numbers of stuff like this. So, yeah. We had to add a 5th one. So we put a double one on the one on the right. Even the houses are in an odd number. So, yeah. Just saying. Again, it's some people like the odd number, some people like the even numbers. I just happen to be that odd number person. Yeah. So cutting off those trees, realizing it just wasn't working, and then the tops of those snowflakes. And now we're going to clean off our desk. And we're going to get this down onto our standard A2 size card panel. This stands up really, really nice. And again, it is reminiscent of those accordion style cards. I don't know, does anybody remember them besides me? But there is a lot of bulk down on that bottom. It's a 1/2 inch. But boy, is it strong. Now, this was fun. So I should have stamped my sentiment first. I knew the sentiment was not going to go onto the outside with everything that was going on. And I loved this sentiment that said, "Merry Everything." And I am using the deep blue that we used for the sky and, of course, an acrylic block. And nope, it did not stamp well. So everything's a little blurry, but not bad. So I'm using the birch trees. I mean, the card was done. We were not going to start over again, and I hope you all would not either. So I have used the birch trees to cover up the 2 areas in the E and the R, and they went perfectly along these letters and covered up perfectly those boo-boos. You can't even tell. Okay, so here is our last card for our 4th series. So there's a lot going on. Now, something that you can do is you could make this a slim line. Okay, you don't have to stick with a standard A2 size card. You could just keep layering these layers on top of each other. Just make sure they go a little bit behind. Now, I chose to double up each one and add the thicker double-sided foam tape in between this layer, and then a thinner one in between this one, and none between this one. I just remembered to put the trees behind that second layer that I put down. These have a lot of details. I mean, I love the drops. Not going to add any splatter to this. There's enough going on to this. If there wasn't this all going up in the sky and as this many houses, I would add the splatter. Now, you don't have to add this many. Again, I take things to an extreme when it comes to that. Now, this will have no problem standing up, by all means. It would also absolutely look gorgeous if this was a double layer and there was just a light underneath it. Or actually this panel here was vellum, because then you could put a tea light in behind it and it would just shine through. So again, another way to add interest to your card when you're creating something, and another way to add life to this type of a silhouette die when it comes to these images. And again, your slimline would go this way. Now, you could, by all means, add a slimline going this way as well. You would just need to trace these layers of snowbanks and create your own. These are actually die cut to 4 1/4 width. Now, you can shorten them and you can lengthen them. You've just got to look at what's meeting with what. Okay? But again, you can use just one color of cardstock and get a beautiful effect. So keep that in mind when it comes to the silhouette dies. All right? As always, I hope you enjoyed this series. This series gets into the more, or this series got into the more intricate techniques, meaning, and I don't mean difficult, I mean there's more of them. You know, we've got die cutting, ink blending, layering, and all of that. It takes time to develop this, to put all of this together. It's not a production style card where you can make 25 or 50 of these in a week. If you do want to make that, again, start in January. So these are the more involved, more time that it takes to put these together. Again, to get an idea, it took about an hour to die cut everything, get everything ready, and then it took about, I'm gonna say, 45 minutes to put the card together, to get those layers up and so forth. So you're looking at 2 hours approximately to get this card together. Now, again, we had an error. So I used an acrylic block to type my sentiment, and I used the same ink that I used outside, and it didn't ink well here and here. So I added some sentiments. It adds a little bit of interest, and no one knows. They hid perfectly. So again, it's not something you have to trash. It's not something you even have to put a plate over it, which you could. Just use those extra pieces and just put them up along the Mary, and it just ties in to what's going in up front. To me, I thought that was ingenious. So, and worked really well. It was perfect. It was like it was meant to be. So again, never stop. You know, you keep going, and that happened at the end. I should have done that in the beginning, but even still, if it did happen, I would not have gotten a new card base. Keep going. There's always ways. We have tricks to cover things. Okay? So if you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below as well. We've got one more week. We are down to the last 5 days. Christmas and the other holidays are right around the corner. For those of you that celebrate Hanukkah, I wish you a happy Hanukkah as well. So guys, enjoy. As we get closer, stress levels get up, so get crafting more. That usually brings my stress down. But enjoy the process. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. Make sure you hit the bell for your next notification when the video is live. And again, enjoy the process. Have fun creating your art. When you have stress and frustration, walk away and come back to it and see it with fresh eyes. You will come up with even more ideas. But remember what is most important, always. Be creative in everything that you do, and I will see you in our last series. Till then.